I'm excited, and you should be too, because today is the first content day! No more housekeeping. Hooray! In honor of the occasion, I have moved to the geek background. Now, this show is not actually about Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, or Doctor Who. Sorry, but I'm sure they will enter the conversation fairly frequently. Hopefully not too frequently for those of you who aren't Tolkienites or Whovians, but you should be, because they're awesome. Anyway, to get to the content as promised, I'm Rebecca Farnum. This is Ramblings with Rebecca. Welcome to episode 4, A New Trope. I've been giving a good deal of thought to the best way to structure this series. The goal is, after all, actually to help me better think about and explore my dissertation, in spite of what my mother says. So the idea is that I'll be throwing out topics that are relevant to my master's thesis and or eventual PhD project, get some practice explaining them, how they're relevant to what I'm doing, what I think about them, that kind of thing. Kind of use you as a sounding board, if you'd be so kind. Tell me if I don't explain something very well, tell me other topics that you think are relevant, that kind of thing. But if I just throw out things like dichotomy and environmental determinism and social constructivism, etc., every episode, and make those the title, I feel like we're gonna get a little, hoping to bring us, down from the ivory tower and, that like the academia high cloud area, which means not having things like that being our titles all the time. So I thought to vary things up a bit, we might also occasionally just throw out a random vocabulary word and see where it takes us. So that's what we're doing with this first episode of content, to ease our way in slowly to more serious topics, if you will. Now you may think that trope was chosen more for its, shall we say, linguistic characteristics than its actual definition. And you'd only be partially correct, because actually, trope has multiple definitions, and almost all of them have quite a lot to do with what I study. Really? Here we go. Trope is most commonly, I think, used to refer to an expression that's used in a figurative sense. So allegory, metaphor, irony, these kind of things are all types of trope. Cliché is the one that's most commonly thought of as a trope. Right, so if you're watching like a romantic comedy or a horror film or whatever, and like it's super formulaic, you know exactly what's happening, oh, here comes the rom-com trope, or oh, that's just a horror trope, yeah, we know exactly what's happening, like, oh, that girl's the first to die, that kind of thing. But that is not actually the only definition of trope. Those of you who are watching episode 2, me, carefully, may remember that I have a minor in religious studies, and trope actually has 2 religious studies definitions. One of them is about the kind of phrase or chunk of text that was used, I mean, they probably still exist somewhere in the world. Anyway, used in masses, particularly in the Middle Ages, as part of liturgy. Oftentimes they were the little bit of text that was special to an occasion. So there might be like an All Saints' Day trope, or an autumn harvest trope. There was a bit of liturgy that was special or somehow subsectioned off. Trope, religious definition 1. Trope, religious definition 2, has to do with Judaism. For those of you who have seen or heard a bar or bat mitzvah or some other kind of ritual recitation of the Torah, you may realize that it was kind of musical and lyrical. Trope is the notation in the text that tells you how to make it musical like that. What is the Torah, you ask? Good question. Very specifically, the Torah is the first 5 books of the Christian Old Testament, or Jewish Bible, which would be Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Torah, more broadly, is often used to refer to just the Jewish Bible as a whole, which is the entirety of the Christian Old Testament. So, trope. Also the little musical notations that make Torah sound so cool when it's read aloud. And lastly, more or less, trope is actually an archaic term used in maths to refer to some kind of like tangential space. Does this feel like a tangent? Sorry, that was a pun worthy of Kendall. Anyway, so what's the new trope, you ask? Ramblings with Rebecca, of course, the brilliant new web series that is, at the same time, cliched, sometimes painfully musical, and always and evermore tangential. Next time, let's talk about dichotomies. Maybe I'll sound a bit more intelligent.